at the internal political states that the member states in the EU are in, there is mass protests, especially in the Eastern European countries, right? Everywhere. People no longer like EU because they see it for the hellhole it is, the undemocratic, anti-democratic hellhole it is. So when you are in a situation like that, where your power seems to just kind of fade away and you can no longer control it, what do? You pick a fight with someone. You go into war. That is like their last go-to before losing power within a country. We will go to war. And that's what unfortunately, that's what I'm seeing here. The mechanisms of totalitarianism are always the same. They're always the same. You need to silence people. And that, by the way, is the difference between a mere dictatorship and totalitarianism. A mere dictatorship, a dictator, he is only concerned about to keep himself in power. And he will take whatever measures he needs to make that happen. But he doesn't care what you think of him. You're not allowed to say it out loud, but what you think of him, he does not care. Just don't speak up about it. Totalitarianism, on the other hand, is a whole different ballgame. They need to control every aspect of every single citizen's life. And they need to control your thinking. That is the difference between dictatorship and totalitarianism. So, and what we're seeing is actually totalitarianism. They want to control your thinking, what you're saying. They lash out at anyone who is saying something different. And we've seen that especially in the COVID years. There were scientists that have been silenced. They lost their job. So there was all sorts of things happening. Look at all of the legislation around this whole transgender madness, right? In Germany, if you now dead name someone or use the wrong pronoun, you get actually fined 10,000 euros for doing so. Exactly. That is totalitarian. So when I see someone in front of me and I see clearly that is a man, and I'm not allowed to say that, or I might even go to jail for it, right? Seriously? This is the stage we're at right now. We're talking about the Digital Services Act, which is censorship on social media. They're, of course, framing it as, we're against hate speech and we want to fight misinformation, disinformation, and malinformation. So they're coming up with all sorts of things and reasons to silence you. And that is totalitarian, right? Misinformation is wrong information, and you are distributing it by mistake. You don't know any better. You think it's true. That will be considered misinformation. Disinformation is the conscious spreading of wrong information. You know better. You know it's not true, but you're spreading it anyway. An example for that would be like when all the governments pretty much around the world told everyone that these mRNA injections were safe and effective. That was actually disinformation. They knew it's false. We now know it was neither safe nor effective, but they knew better and they spread it anyway. Now we're going to malinformation. And that's really the kicker now. Malinformation is factually true information which is harmful to the politically desired narrative. So an example for malinformation would be if I said there is exactly two sexes, men and women. It's a factually true statement, but they deem it harmful. And as you already, to who is it harmful? And who decides what harmful information is? So, and that's what we are drifting into, the totalitarianism right now. And it's mind-boggling how so many people fail to see it. I don't know who's doing it. I really don't. Um, I can tell you, it's not Ursula von der Leyen. She is not making any decisions. It's not Bill Gates. It's not even Klaus Schwab, right? They're not the ones calling the shots, because they're the idiots that hang their face in the camera and advocate for all of this nonsense and this totalitarian crap. So it's not them. But who it is, I really don't know. I have no idea. And I usually refer to them, for the lack of a better word, as the Globalitarian Misanthropists, right? So there is a group of people, I have no idea who they are, but they are the ones calling the shots. And our elected governments are mere puppets. They are just, pretty much implementing whatever they come up with. To what end and what their goal is? To me, it seems quite obvious. It is to ultimately erect a one world government and to transform our liberal, open, democratic, equal societies consisting of free individuals into some kind of a collectivism where the individual is becoming merely a malleable part that can be shuttled around any which way the globalitarian misanthropists need you to be shoveled around. And that is, by the way, the reason the EU even exists. So looking at Europe, we're living here on this rather small continent with so many different cultures, traditions, histories, languages even. And the European peoples are proud people. They are. You would have never been able to convince them to just surrender their national state and relinquish national sovereignty to a one-world government. They would have never gone along with this. But since they pulled in the EU institutions, right, it's a stepping stone. So it's like, and it's under the pretext of, oh, we've been fighting so many wars on this continent, which is true. And we need to stop this. And the way to do it, we need to come together as Europe and as the EU institutions, right? It's just a stepping stone. So once they are relinquishing ever more competencies to the EU institutions, it's only a small step to then, okay, now we go to the one world government or whatever, right? So, but you need to condition the Europeans to be willing to do that. So they were talking about a coalition of the willing, right? Well, how about we talk about a coalition of the capable? So, I mean, hearing Keir Starmer contemplating, putting boots on the ground and planes in the air. What planes is he talking about? And I mean, as far as Germany is concerned, what boots is he even talking about? Right? So what Europe has been doing for the past decades is pretty much completely neglect our ability to defend ourselves. Not only have they neglected that completely, anyone, joining the army, whether it was in a setting where it was mandatory, so you had to serve like a specific amount of time, or it was a voluntary joining of the army. I mean, these young men, had been stigmatized as murderers or whatever. They were frowned upon, right? So, and who in their right mind would want to contribute to the capability of defending your country if you're being stigmatized for even thinking about it? And not only that, especially in Germany, I mean, we've been told for decades now we really ought to hate ourselves because of our past, which is absolutely despicable. I'm referring now to the Nazi era in Germany. We should never forget that, and we should definitely live up to our promise to never again and fight the beginnings. However, if you are teaching young children, you are not allowed to be proud of your country. You not only not that, you have to hate it. Why would anyone want to defend something you were taught to hate?